These stories of corrupt cops facing justice reveal a real-life cops gone rogue drama. The long arm of the law finally caught up with them, proving that even those who wear the badge are not above it. Miedzianowski was no ordinary drug criminal, wrote the federal judge, Kendall. So who is this Miedzianowski? Let's find this out and a lot more in today's video. Chicago's history is tainted by a recurring specter of police corruption and misconduct. With each scandal, officials make lofty promises that it won't happen again. Shockingly, some sources have ranked Joseph Miedzianowski as the fourth most corrupt cop in all of US history. For 22 long years, he wore the badge of a Chicago police officer while secretly donning the crown of a drug kingpin, extorting drug dealers in a chilling double life. From the very beginning, Joseph Miedzianowski exhibited an uncanny talent for spotting trouble. Even as a rookie, his co-workers couldn't help but notice his imposing presence, an almost rock-like figure in the force. Nicknamed Hammer and Joe, he quickly developed a reputation as the first to breach a door during a bust. His methods were brutal, often relying on violence to extract answers, a practice many found unjustifiable. Yet it was undeniable that he brought a semblance of safety through these ruthless means. Miedzianowski made a name for himself by targeting drug gangs, a mission that made use of his network of inside informants. But slowly, he was becoming indistinguishable from the criminals he pursued. Even the FBI at times found themselves baffled, unsure whether they were dealing with a brilliant cop or a brilliant criminal mastermind. As time passed, Miedzianowski's criminal activities caught up with him. He was eventually found guilty of orchestrating a drug trafficking operation from Miami to Chicago. In 2003, he received a life sentence for his involvement in distributing crack cocaine, providing ammunition to gang members, and exposing the identities of undercover officers to his criminal associates. To make matters worse, federal authorities discovered that Miedzianowski had even threatened to have lead prosecutor Brian Nettles eliminated. Joseph Miedzianowski, now 68, was one of several federal defendants seeking a reduced prison sentence under the First Step Act, which was signed into law by then-President Donald Trump in 2018. However, the judge decided against granting him a reduced sentence. Even if Miedzianowski is genuinely remorseful, the court must weigh the necessity to discourage others from engaging in similar misconduct. Judge Kendall explained. Considering the seriousness of Miedzianowski's crimes, the court is cautious about granting him early release if it could undermine respect for the law. If the previous story left you intrigued by a cop turned gangster, the next one is bound to leave you astounded as it delves into a cop's transformation into a hitman. Stephen Kakupa and Louis Epolito, former New York City Police Department detectives, engaged in a range of criminal actions to serve the American Mafia's 5 families, particularly the Lucchese and Gambino crime clans. This duo later earned the infamous moniker Mafia Cops. Louis Epolito was born into a family with deep mafia connections. His father, a Gambino family soldier known as Fat the Gangster, had ties to the criminal world. Epolito's uncle, Jimmy the Clam, his grandfather, and even a cousin were also part of this underworld. However, after completing high school, Louis chose a different path and joined the New York Police Department. It was an unlikely career choice that eventually led to both medals and headlines. Stephen Kakupa had worked in the organized crime homicide unit of the NYPD since the late 1970s, before he eventually retired on a disability pension in 1992. Do you believe that the family's influence played a role in the corruption of these officers? Comment your thoughts down below. As stated by the Lucchese family underboss Anthony Gaspipe Casso during his attempt to enter the witness protection program in 1994. He revealed that his boss had provided Epolito and Kakupa with $375,000 in bribes, which included payoffs for murder contracts starting in 1985. These two detectives were receiving $4,000 per month to supply Casso with law enforcement information. They were also paid extra for carrying out murder contracts, such as the $70,000 they received for the hit on Eddie Lino, a capo in the Gambino crime family. In 2005, the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of New York indicted Kakupa and Epolito on charges of racketeering conspiracy. These charges included a pattern of murders, kidnappings, witness tampering, obstruction of justice, money laundering, and narcotics dealing with mobsters and mob associates. These activities spanned from the mid-1980s to the mid-2000s, and it's believed that they were responsible for at least 8 murders, although the exact number remains unclear. Both detectives were convicted in 2006 and subsequently sentenced to life imprisonment in 2009. Please know that I have been fighting the case in the court since being convicted with no relief. I have stage 4 cancer and will not survive, wrote Kakupa. But he died in 2017 at a medical detention facility in Butner, North Carolina, at the age of 75 years. Mr. Epolito also died in 2019 at a hospital in Tucson, Arizona, at the age of 71. Now, coming to our third story, a sworn guardian turned into a nightmarish predator. Once a trusted figure, Joshua Dwayne Carrier's sinister double life as a former Colorado Springs police officer and volunteer, wrestling coach at Horace Mann Middle School, came to light in October 2012. He stood convicted of abusing over 20 boys, leading to a sentence of 70 years to life. Shockingly, Carrier faced accusations of molesting 22 children, with prosecutors revealing the horrifying fact that some victims were subjected to repeated abuse. He faced a staggering number of charges, over 200 in total, encompassing sexual assault, sexual contact, and enticing children. Perhaps most disturbingly, Carrier publicly acknowledged the profound pain he had inflicted on his victims, their families, and the entire community. Student wrestlers were groped, stroked, and in some cases videotaped in the nude under the pretext Carrier was checking them for ringworm and other communicable diseases before competition. Parents who attended the hearing in person recounted how he leveraged his authority as a police officer to get away with the assaults.
Mr. Carrier has been charged with 5 counts of sexual assault on a child by one in a position of trust,
using goodwill and gifts to further earn victims' trust. Carrier later asked for a reduced sentence. To that, a parent commented, "I am blown away that Carrier even has the audacity to ask for an early release." A student who was a victim of Carrier wrote that, "To whom it may concern, I am mentally screwed in the head because of the pathological liar that Carrier was and always will be." The court dismissed his plea, and Carrier continues to serve his sentence behind bars. Moving on to our last case of the day. Prepared to be astonished by the extraordinary lengths this police officer went in order to settle his debts. Once John Michael Kean II was a respected sergeant in the Chesapeake Sheriff's Department. He had earned a reputation for being dependable and likable, someone who didn't like letting people down. Besides his law enforcement career, he shared his musical talents by playing the guitar in his father's church. But life can take unexpected turns. Marital and financial troubles crept into his world, casting shadows of unhappiness over his life. In an attempt to alleviate his despair, Kean turned to retail therapy, seeking comfort in buying things. At least some of that spending was on pornography, phone sex, and visits to strip clubs. Little did he know that this reckless spending would push him further into the abyss of debt and misery. His father, who had once seen his son as an upstanding figure, could hardly believe that John Michael Kean II would end up being sentenced to 20 years in prison for his involvement in not one but 3 bank robberies, all targeting the same bank. Instead of turning to family for help, he ended up choosing a different path. He managed to pull off 2 bank robberies at the same bank in 2009, seemingly slipping through the cracks of the law. However, his luck ran out on the 3rd attempt in 2010. On that fateful day, he entered the BB&T bank disguised in dark glasses, gloves, and a surgical mask. Making his intentions clear, Kean handed a bag to the teller, leaving no room for doubt. He was robbing the bank. Fearful for their safety, the teller complied and filled the bag with money, which Kean swiftly took before exiting the bank. He made a hasty getaway in a red vehicle, possibly a Ford Taurus, according to witnesses. Shortly after this daring heist, an observant Chesapeake Canine officer spotted a vehicle matching the description of the suspect's car parked near a Volvo Parkway. The police swiftly intervened, conducting a search of the car, which yielded incriminating evidence linking Kean to the bank robbery. Kean later confessed to using license plates he had stolen the night before from a pest control business. He had replaced them with his own plates after the robbery in a desperate attempt to cover his tracks. Kean has been charged with 3 counts of robbery, wearing a mask in public, use of a firearm in the commission of a felony, and entering a banking house with the intent to commit larceny. He received a 20-year prison sentence and is currently serving time for committing 3 bank robberies. Do you think justice was served in all these cases? To explore more stories like these, feel free to follow and subscribe to the channel.